Your book is called Memoir of a South Boston Mechanic. You're another kind of urban mechanic, as it were, and there are some things beyond fixing the cars, beyond the click and clack, that I didn't know about, and that maybe made this a fairly stressful kind of job. Explain that a little bit.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the area that I was working in.
In South Boston.
Yeah, and the clientele that I had. I mean, I had some most wonderful families in the world that I grew very close to during those years, and I hope maybe through this book I might be able to connect with some of them again. But then there was the other side, the hooligans, the drug dealers, and the bookmakers. You know, they were good people too, but some of them were pretty rough, and I had to say no to a lot of opportunities that were offered because of the garage being in South Boston. I mean, I was offered a chance to hold card games in my back room. I was offered storing, hot vehicles. I chose not to do any of that because I didn't want to risk losing everything that our family had worked so hard for. And, but the opportunities were there, and my life would have been totally different had I grasped all those opportunities.
What about the social life? Because you did spend a lot of time socializing.
Social life was wonderful. I mean, once I became part of the community in South Boston, there was always the annual parade. Everybody was Irish for that day. And, you would be invited to family gatherings from one house to another, and then you'd go up and watch the parade. There were the local taverns that were almost like a family gathering place. And you got to know 30, 40 people just like they were family. And it was some of the best years of my life.
Interesting chapter in the book when, during the time of the gas shortages, I believe in the late 1970s, and like today, there's a lot of stress on people who run gas stations with thefts, and you had to ration gas, so I guess that was a problem for you. Yeah,
we probably were selling 1,200 to 1,500 gallons a day when the gas shortage went into effect, and they were cutting us down to about 600 gallons a day. But we had 20 or 30 commercial accounts that depended on us to keep their trucks and cars going. So we had to figure out ways to keep the general public away from the pumps so that this temporary gas shortage, hopefully we could take care of our regular customers. And that caused a whole other set of problems for us and a lot of stressful situations. People were running with, they were trying to steal gas. There's incidences of people getting shot at gas pumps in local gas stations, and came to a point where I actually had to have an armed guard in my office for a period. You had a $2 limit for the normal customers, and one day this man rolls up in a very big car and says, "Fill it up." Fill it up. And when I yelled at him, because I had had a stressful day up to that point already, "Can't you see the signs, $2 limit?" All at once I found this shiny automatic weapon stuck in my face through the window. And at this time, probably a few days prior to that, a friend of mine had offered to stand guard in my office, which was only 10 feet from the gas pumps, because I had had some close calls and some pretty violent encounters. And when that other gas jockey got shot, I felt the need to have some protection. That's how bad it got. So when this guy pulled a gun on me at the pumps, I winked towards the office and I went back. I said, yeah, I'll fill it up. And just as I got out of the way, my friend came out the window out the door with his gun pointed right at this gentleman's head. And the guy took off in a frenzy so fast that he closed the window, it caught his hat in the window, and the car zoomed away. I had no idea who that person was at the time. Yeah. And of course, maybe it was Whitey Bulger, maybe it wasn't, but we're many years removed from this, and I'm sitting here in the studio, I'm saying, well, maybe he could have filled up the tank, and there wouldn't have been a need for guns to get involved, and yeah, you would have lost a little money or something like that if people kept coming back for some fill-ups. But looking back now, was it really necessary for guns to be at your ready, at least, to deal with that? No, in a sensible world, if you use your head, you don't need to do things like that. But you have to remember the environment that was Southie back in those years. People didn't back down from confrontations, and we protected each other, in those situations. So normally, it never even occurred to me to let the guy have his full tank and drive away. Being in my 20s, and I had a friend willing to stand guard, that was a better option, because once people know they can step all over you, I think that it just becomes a trend.
I want to end this by having you talk about one more adventure. This is really after most of the chapters in the book. Doesn't sound like the sort of thing like someone who'd been doing what you described would end up doing, but you're married, you got a kid, and you read in the paper that there's a shortage of people on the local school committee.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how age can change a person. I got a lot more sensible in my older years. And when you have a child, that changes your whole mindset. You know, you read about problems in the school system. That it probably gave me the incentive to run for school committee, because I knew my son was going to be going through this school system. And if I could do something to make it better, I felt that this was a good opportunity, especially where there was a shortage of school committee members. It's not something I would seek out, but it was actually a necessity. There was nobody running for the position. There were problems that needed to be addressed. And so I ran, and I think we got some good things done in the school system.
So instead of standing up for yourself, you stood up for the kids.
Oh yeah, and there were a lot of things that we accomplished.
We should mention that if anybody wants to find your book, at least online, there are maybe a couple of ways they can do that.
Yeah, you can go to exlibris.com, or it's available Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. I even found some places in England and Scotland. It's listed everywhere now.
Right. Well, thank you very much for being with us. The book is The Constant Outsider, and the author, Tom Cirignano. We'll be back in a moment after this message.